Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fifth webinar of Business Success Workshop Series, Strive and Thrive. And I'm really thankful to my experts, Oisín and Peter. They are giving us time every week just to help all the communities. And this will be recorded for coaching and training purpose. Over to you, Maria.
Okay, thank you, Aqeel, and thanks everybody for joining us tonight. First of all, just a little quick housekeeping. So if anyone would like to write any questions for the industry experts, please pop them on the chat, or you're welcome to email educationsuccessinformation@gmail.com. So tonight we're going to start with our first industry expert. His name is Peter Simpson, and he founded his management consulting company, Organisation Technology, in 1985. He uses statistical methods and analysis of production processes and their management, which has saved millions of dollars. Some of Mr. Simpson's clients include Kodak Australia, whereby he reduced their production costs by $40 million. Also, Peter did work for Coca-Cola Amatil, and he helped Bechtel Pacific's 1,350,000 employees aluminium smelter project in Queensland to finish 6 months early and 100 million under budget. Mr. Simpson has also assisted hundreds of small and medium-sized companies achieve profits and growth through improved management and organisation with clients all around the world. Over his long career, Peter Simpson has helped to create or save thousands of jobs, delivered seminars and workshops to tens of thousands of individuals, and created $2 billion of savings and increased income for his clients. We'd like to welcome Peter Simpson.
Okay, thank you very much, Maria. I'll now share a screen. Can you enable screen sharing, Oisín? Thank you. Yep, good. And here we go. Good. All right, can you all see that? Very, very good. Okay. So I can't. Just a minute. Let me do something else here. There we go. That should be better. Thank you. So tonight I'm talking about creating a successful business or career. And as always, this is based on the materials developed by Mr. L. Ron Hubbard. So the ancient wise people said that the cycle of life is birth, growth, decline, then death. So something begins and it inevitably goes through a sequence. It grows, it declines, and then it ends. This is how it's supposed to be. A different form of the same idea was written this way. Things start, that is, they're created. They continue. In other words, they survive. And then they stop or are destroyed. So this would apply to a business, as you see here. This woman has started her business. She then operates it as a bakery school. And then sometime in the future, it ends, and even the building itself goes into decline. Now, this idea is common to most societies. It seems to say that creating only occurs when at the start of things. There's just one create. And most people think that you start and then just continue what you started with no changes and everything will be fine. So you start it and then you just continue it. And a lot of businesses operate this way. A person gets this great idea, they create the business, all the things are present that they wanted to have present, and then it's kind of, let's just operate that forever and ever, and ever and ever, and all will be good. But Mr. Hubbard saw that the true cycle is this. There's a create or start, and then there must be continuous creation. So again, you can see this lady, she starts her bakery business and then she creates it further, adds more things, adds more products. There's create. And if you do this, you get growth. So there must be continuous creation. And then at the end, the creation stops. So we actually get no creating, end or death. So the real cycle is create, then create, and then no creating. So something only exists so long as it is continuously created. And this is true for marriage. Some people think, you know, you just stand in front of a religious person and you say some words and that's it. You're married now and you have a marriage and all will be fine. You don't have to do anything. No, unless you're creating it, there is no marriage. It might coexist, but there's no true marriage unless it's created. And both parties need to create it. It's true for business. It will exist as long as it is created. And it needs to be created very properly and very thoroughly. There's some very, very long-running businesses. I've been to Japan a great many times, so I chose a Japanese example. This particular cake shop is in the Japanese city of Kyoto, and it's operated for 1,000 years. It's now operated by the 24th generation of the same family that founded it 1,000 years ago. The current building is a very recent creation. It's only 400 years old. There were several other buildings before that, but this is the newest one, a young thing at 400 years. And it also applies to a career. Many people think you just get trained, get a job, and that's it. You're fine. You can sit back, you'll get paid every week, and everything will be good. Well, people who sit back and just expect to get paid every week often find they don't have a job. It needs to be continuously created. Things in this universe never remain the same. They're either improving or they are worsening. Unless someone is improving things, they get worse. So you can see here, you buy a new house. And if you don't do anything, sooner or later, it'll look like the house in the middle. Just about to fall over. But then you can renovate it, make it new. And that's exactly the same house on the right as the one in the middle, renovated. So you can improve things. You can take an old car and make it brand new again. Or you can choose not to, and gradually, it'll fall apart. And this is true of everything. I've seen this. I've traveled a lot, been to many restaurants. And I've gone to restaurants that have just opened, like this one on the left side. Bright, shiny, wonderful. And then you go back to it 15 years later and it looks like the one on the right. It's dark, it's dingy, kind of has a coating of grease on the walls. And they wonder why business isn't as good as it used to be. It's simply not being created. The good business owner is always creating new ideas, always improving, always trying to be better and to do better. And they get great pleasure in this. What can we do to give better service? What can we do to provide better food if it's a restaurant? How can we make our restaurant itself look better, brighter? All creation begins with an idea. For continued success, there must be a continuous stream of new ideas to improve the product, the service, the shop, the factory, or the store. It never stops. And people who do this are fine. They can also survive all kinds of shocks, like we've just had in Melbourne. Things do go on. I know restaurants, and I even have a restaurant as a client that's done very well through this shutdown. So well, in fact, they opened another restaurant during the shutdown. He's a very creative guy. When creation stops, that which was created declines and eventually ends. Things do not always naturally decline or end. Thoughts of ending the creation usually happen before the end occurs. So here we have an owner of a restaurant, and he's decided he can't do it anymore for whatever reason. He sees all kinds of reasons. Life is tough, running a restaurant's hard, whatever, and he stops creating. And of course, the end result of that is the restaurant closed down. And if you talk to him, it will always be something other than he made it happen. I remember many, many years ago when the GST was first introduced into Australia, my wife and I went to the city to go to a restaurant. We had no particular restaurant in mind, and we just walked along a street that had many, many, many restaurants in it. And we came to one which was empty, while all the other restaurants around it were very, very busy. And this particular restaurant had a sign on the door saying, "The GST ruined my business. I'm forced out of business by the GST," which both caused me, my wife and I, to fall down laughing, because every other restaurant was paying the GST and they were full. People always find a reason. And the only reason really is they stop creating. So there is a solution. Always keep creating. First as ideas, and then to put those ideas into action. And they don't have to be really grand ideas. A lot of people fail on this point. They think they have to come up with huge ideas, grand schemes, spend a lot of money. No. Tiny ideas are okay, so long as they are good ideas and they get used. This action is so powerful that it alone can revive a failing business or failing career, or take a successful one even higher. I can tell you I've done this with people, with business owners, simply got them creating. It happened to me, as a matter of fact, when the COVID shutdown first hit Melbourne. There were many people I couldn't see. And I thought, heck, what can I do? And I thought, I know, I'll promote. And I organised an Indian company, as a matter of fact, to put together an advertising campaign online. And I did other forms of promotion, or I just planned, I should say, to do other forms of promotion. And the Indian company hadn't even started yet, and I hadn't done any of the things I'd planned to do. And several people the following day rang me up and said, I'd like you to do some work for me. Now get this, all I did was think about it. All I did was plan it, and the business came in. It's a very powerful, powerful thing. Start creating, putting there a better future, a brighter future, and how you're going to do it. And it will begin the moment you do that. So the moral of all of this is keep creating. Don't ever sit back. Don't ever think it's all just going to roll along fine. The moment you do that, it stops growing. You do it a little bit longer and it will start to go down. Keep creating, plan to do better, plan to be bigger, plan to offer better service, and things will go up and up. Well, that's all I have for you to do right now, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. That was wonderful. And now over to you, Maria. Please introduce our second expert.
Okay, thank you. Our second industry expert is Mr. Oisín Grogan, also known as a 200 million business coach. He's an entrepreneur, international consultant.
Maria,
Yes.
I think you've got some paper on your microphone.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Well, we can. There's just a tremendous noise being going on.
It's a rattling kind of noise.
Awesome. Sorry, gentlemen.
Okay, there you go.
We'll start again. So Mr. Oisín Grogan, also known as a 200 million business coach, is an entrepreneur, international consultant and speaker. Oisín knows what it's like to have debts, lack of sales and difficult staff. All the challenges that you are facing right now as a business owner, especially during COVID. He has personally experienced, but more importantly, all of these difficulties he has managed to conquer. Oisín founded Executive Success in 2008 after running a number of successful businesses in the service, manufacturing, property and consulting industries. Since then, he has consulted businesses in over 50 industries, ranging from startups to public companies with turnovers in the hundreds of millions, and has a unique track record of being able to grow and streamline all types of businesses. And he has added over 500 million plus in growth to his clients. Let's give a warm welcome to Oisín.
There we go. All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. All right. Thanks for that. Okay. Very good. So I'm going to go on, I guess we could say, getting into a little bit more detail on how can you create. Peter covered create. It's so interesting you say that, Peter. I was dealing with a restaurant owner in the last 6 months in Japan, of all places. And that's exactly what we did. We got him from, like, he's sick of his business after decades. You know, very successful business, always getting opportunities. Oh, can we put one of your restaurants in my here in the airport, all sorts of things. But was totally, sick of it. So we got him back onto Create, and amazingly, all these great opportunities came, and his income rose through this whole period, even when they locked down Tokyo. So it's very real what you're talking about. So it's just getting Create, and the opportunities just keep coming, and it's just a matter of shift of viewpoint. If you can start the business, you can keep growing it, that's for sure. All right, so let's get into some detail on how could you apply this. So here we go. Let's see, here it is. So what I'm going to cover is what's called the components of understanding, but it's also the components of life and how would you do create? How would you create things? How would you do it in your actual business? How would you do it in your marriage? How would you do it in these things? So let's have a look. You know about me, oh, it's my family. There we go. So get a pen and paper ready for some notes. I'm going to have some interesting little exercises to do. I've got a bit to cover, so I'm going to talk quickly. Jump in if you've got questions. Okay, so we're going to cover a thing called the ARC triangle. Don't worry, I'm going to define what it is. So this answers the question, how can I talk to people, or how should I talk to people? This could be your customers, could be your staff, could be the government, could be anyone. How can I give my new ideas to people? So if you want to start a business or start a new career, how can I find what people are thinking about? It's very interesting. How can I handle my work better, etc. All right, and also it could be, how can I close more sales? This will help you with that. How can I get more customers? And the list goes on. Even how can I get my kids to talk to me, right? So, all right, so this ARC triangle is this. It stands for, it's a triangle firstly because it's got these 3 points. All right, so that's nice. Okay, the first point here we're going to look at is affinity. We're going to define all these and see how we can apply them to get more money, more business, you know, better relationships, all that sort of thing, more clients. Second point, reality. And the third of these points, and the most important, is communication. And this is why you'll find in my earlier presentations, I talked a lot about communication. If you're communicating, you're proactive, you're also going to be more creative, funny enough. Interestingly enough. And they all add up to understanding. But just on this point of communication, I think I want to share something with you. You see, when you communicate, you're originating things. When you're originating things, you're the cause point, right? This is what we're covering the last few weeks, or I was anyway. So, and when you communicate, you actually tend to create more. You're creating ideas and so on and so forth. So if any of you have ever been, you know, if you talk to people about promoting, it's one of the ways you're going to create your business and expand your business, right? There's many ways to do it. We won't get into the specifics, but a lot of people go, oh, I don't know what to say. You know, I wouldn't know what to write for my first newsletter, but then they write it one newsletter. And then before you know it, they can think of the second newsletter. And before they've written the second newsletter, they can think of 5 newsletters. So people tend to get more creative the more they communicate. So that's one of the keys. You want to get more creative, communicate more. And that's one of the answers to solve any problem you may be facing. You've got to communicate to a friend, communicate to a consultant, communicate to a webinar. There's many ways. All right. Okay, and now I'll got to find my presentation. I've lost it. That's not it. There it is. All right, so let's share that. Okay, so affinity, reality, and communication add up to understanding. So this also tells you many things. And I'll give you, if you reach out at the end, I'll be able to give you links to more information to get deeper into this. But so let's look at affinity now. Let's define that and go into some examples and how could you raise your affinity? Because this has got a lot to do with how much income you can make and how much clients or customers will give you money. So, all right, the word affinity here is used to mean love, liking, or any other emotional attitude. Affinity is a variable quality, right? It's not like you just have a lot of affinity or nothing. It can vary everything from a lot to nothing and everything in between. So affinity is here used as a word with the context degree of liking. So you can like something a little, Okay. Or you can like it a lot. This is Steve Jobs back when he was making the first apples. So, and everything in between, right? So a child is full of affinity. Not only does he have affinity for his father, mother, brothers and sisters and his playmates, but for his dogs, his cats and stray dogs that happen to come around. And so it is with your business and your customers and your clients, right? You can have varying degrees of affinity. Interestingly enough, when you're creating, you tend to like everything about your business more. Or if it's your career, if you're not a business owner, you like everything about your career when you're creating it. And this tends to be more at the start. So the real art to having success, as Peter covered, is actually being able to continue this affinity through the whole thing and create it. All right. So here's kids. Kids are real obvious examples. They have lots of affinity and in relationships and so on. But affinity goes even beyond this. You can have a feeling of affinity for objects. I love the way the grain stands out in that wood, like in that table. So you could like this table. Or what about this plastic vinyl wrap? Which would you prefer? Which do you have more affinity for? I know what my answer is. And there's a feeling of oneness with the earth, blue skies, rain, mill ponds, cartwheels and bullfrogs, which is affinity. Mill ponds are those ponds next to the old, mills, which ground wheat and grain and things like, and cartwheels, just the wheels of carts. You get the idea, right? You can have a feeling of oneness for the earth, blue skies, so on. All right, you remain very much yourself when you have affinity for something, but you also feel the essence of the thing for which you have affinity, like a good friend. But if you really like your customers, it's much easier to help them and sell to them, by the way, because you can feel the essence. All right. You remain yourself, and yet you draw closer to the object for which you have affinity. It's not a binding quality. There are no strings attached when affinity is given. To the receiver, it carries no duties and no responsibilities. And here's a photo I actually took of sunset at Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco at the start of the year. It is pure, easy, and natural, and flows out from the individual as easily as sunlight flows from the sun. We're talking about affinity, of course. And affinity begets affinity. In other words, affinity causes more affinity. Have you ever noticed it's contagious, affinity, right? If you come into a room and you're like, hey, everybody, that's what, yeah, see, look, you all started smiling, right? Hey, but how about, right, but how about if I come into the room and I'm like, you assholes? It reverses, right? So affinity creates affinity, and lack of affinity creates lack of affinity. So you come into your business, you come in and you're like, oh God, I hate this business. I'm so sick of it. It's just gonna flow like a dirty sunlight. Yeah, you get the idea. All right. So it's really important to keep that high. So we're gonna go into some ways you can do this. So you've got to maintain high affinity for your business, your customers, your staff, even the government if you have to deal with them. It's going to be easier to deal with them if you can do that. So affinity begets affinity. Now get this: a person who is filled with the quality will automatically find people anywhere near him also beginning to be filled with affinity, just like we did an example of then. It's a calming, warming, heartening influence on all who are capable of receiving and giving it. Owen Hubbard. So there you go. So in my experience, this is just my experience, my slide here, affinity equals money. Who would you rather give money to? You walk into the shop and the guy's, hey, and it's sincere. Or, yeah, what do you want? Like, who's going to get more money? It's real simple. And this is the same for your staff. You walk into a business and the receptionist's like, yeah, or even on the phone, right? Yeah. Yeah, blah, 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 yep. Can I help? Even less affinity would be they don't answer, right? That would be like even less, they don't even want to answer. And then high affinity is like, hi, can I help you? Welcome, blah, 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 Oh, yes, he's in today. Let me get you through. Like, who are you going to do business with? It's so obvious, right? Yeah. Okay, so this is something to look at. It's one of the simpler things, and you'll have to, just as Peter covered, you have to create it. You have to create affinity. So there you go. So super simple, but if you could look at any area where you could raise affinity in your business, you will make more money. You will attract more customers. All right, let's have a look at the other parts now. So how could we raise affinity? Because if you like that about your business, ain't going to work so well. Or if you hate your customers or you hate someone. So the first thing is to find something to like about them. This is just say a person. You know, you might have to, at some point, like I've gone into offices and you might instantly walk up to a person and you're like, you don't like them, right? In fact, the person in front of you might not be very likable at all, right? Anyone had that one? You know, like you got to deal with a customer and they're just kind of not very nice. Well, if you're going to deal with them effectively, we need this affinity reality communication thing to be working, right? So the simplest way is just find something to like about them, right? Something. So my one is just that's the tie one. You know, one time I walked into this guy and he was just an a-hole, right? But I liked his tie. I like the color of that tie. So straight away, my affinity and reality and communication, thus understanding of this guy is higher. And then we could get on. Then I found out he was a Carlton supporter, Carlton Football Club, which we've got to stick together. I'm a Carlton supporter. Unfortunately, we've lost everything for the last 15 plus years, right? So anyway, so I could find that to like about him. So we could, you know, huddle together and, you know, anyway, you get the idea, right? So instantly we can get along better straight away from like, oh. Anyway, there you go. So that's a real winner. Like even if your wife is yelling at your husband and you know, you don't want to have a massive argument, you could at least start with, well, she always looks cute when she's angry, you know, or, you know, geez, her hair still looks good, you know, or whatever. It's a good place to start. All right. So that's one of the first things you can do. Find something to like about them. Not what, no, I didn't say what to dislike about them, what to like about them. Okay, here's another thing we can do. So let's do a little drill, a little exercise. What do you like about your business? Write it down. Or think about it. What do you like about it? I'll give you 5 seconds. Just tick off some things. Or your career if you're not a business owner. Cool. All right, good. Here's another one. Yeah, are you ready? Yeah. Cool. Good. So what do you like about it? Anyway, get the point. You could sit there for the next half an hour and think about all the things you like about your business. You will be creating it. You will instantly have ideas. It's cool. All right, here's the next one. What do you like about your customers? Note it down. There can be a tendency to think about what you don't like. So you just got to go back to putting on the customers you do like. You know, at least 80% of your customers are awesome. Probably closer to 90 something. It's just a couple of shitty ones that tends to drag your attention. So what do you like about them? Good. I'll give you another 5 or 10 seconds. Awesome. Very good. You can continue with this afterwards if you like. Okay, what do you like about your staff if you have some? Your staff or your business partners? Let's find something to like about them. Again, not that they're late or they look grubby. So no, none of that. What do you like about them? Do they do a good job? Are they friendly? Do they tell good stories in the lunchroom? I mean, that would be something to like about someone. And I also would like to point out that you're one of your staff too, right? So you might as well look at what do you like about yourself as this business owner? Like you're tremendously, brilliantly good at coming up with ideas, or you have great dress sense, or you just put an awesome beard or something. You know, you can start anywhere, right? All right, cool. You get the idea. So it's pretty cool. There's a few more on this one, then we're going to move on to the next. What do you like about your service or product? What's good about it? There's also an excellent idea, excellent question to ask your customers. You'll find out why they give you money. It would also increase your understanding of them. So you're finding out what they like. All right, good. And last question. And what do you enjoy the most about your business? What's the most enjoyable part of it? I'm sure there's things you enjoy. Like, what are they? All right, very good. Thanks for doing that, guys. So hopefully your affinity is higher for your business now. So let's now look at the next one, which is reality. So reality, and just to refresh you there, so we've got this ARC triangle. We've covered affinity. Now we're going to look at reality. This is much shorter, this section. The solid, this is the first entry level into reality. The solid objects, the real things of life. All right, so if you want to get reality with people, it's much easier to get reality by looking at solid objects. Have you noticed that you'll get more agreement on cars than politics? All right, look at that, woo! All right, Lambo. All right, so that's simple. So that's very simple, all right? And here's the next level, and this is a higher level of skill required in this one, which is the degree of agreement reached by two people. So it's interesting that, see, now we can be looking at a car, and these two guys are going to go, yeah, it's a car. So we know it's a car. That's much easier, well, to agree on, right? So reality, we've got reality. It's a car. It's an old car. It's a 1957 Holden or whatever it is. Okay. But now let's take it up a notch to the degree of agreement. So how about I go, it's a cool car? Is it a cool car? Well, no, I think it's a classic car. Well, no, I don't think it's classic. I think it's vintage. Anyway, you get the idea, right? When we get into agreement, it requires a higher degree of affinity to get reality. So this is what you're doing when you're selling and many other things. So let's look back at that. So the degree of agreement reached by two people is reality. So a little tip on this is that, like affinity, there's degrees of these things. You know, we don't just, if you've got a prospect or a husband or a wife and you're trying to get them up to this level of reality, you know, you're not going to get them from here to here in one jump. There's degrees, levels, like a thermometer, like a temperature. You get the idea. So you need to go in and find out where their reality is. So if it's here, you need to start there and then go to here and then here and so on. And that's how you build big sales, or, you know, anything really. Even handle kids and lots of stuff. All right, so don't start in with what you don't agree on, right? Find something you agree on. This is one of the best ways. So here we go, let's move on. So let's look at how we could raise reality. So let's start with the solid objects, the real things of life, the easy one. And this is, by the way, why it tends to be easier to sell cars and houses and things like that, because they're just obviously there. You get more agreement on them. They're more reality. So look, this is the simplest way to get agreement. Start looking at them. Peter covered this very nicely. I think it was last week. So right now, I just want you to look around your room, the room you're in, and find something that's real. So I assume you've done that and you've just got reality on it. You know, you've increased your reality. You can do this with people. If you've got people in a business that are arguing, get them to look and look at things, get them to look at things in the office before you start trying to get them to agree on ideas. That's higher. All right. So let's now look at this. The degree of agreement reached by two people is that one. So let's look at that. What do you agree on? We covered that. Not what you don't agree on. That's what a fight is. So I'll give you a really, really simple example of this on what are people agreeing on. One time, many years ago, I was in this rougher neighborhood, and I was walking down the street, and there was a couple in their front yard screaming at each other, like screaming, like just like that picture. And obviously their affinity is down, their reality is way down. They're not agreeing on anything. And I was silly enough to go, hey guys, can you, is everything okay? And straight away they looked at me and started screaming at me, both of them. And at that point, I was extremely, what they did agree on, that I was a bastard or whatever I don't know. But the point is they stopped fighting. See, they agreed, I'm the target. So that's a very good way to get people who are fighting or bickering, is get them to look at something else and agree on something else. Right, anyway, it's hilarious too, right? They're screaming at me. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. I'll leave you to it. And then they stopped and then just started back, turned to face each other and just started yelling at each other, right? So it was hilarious. Anyway, you get the idea. Okay, cool. So recall a time when you had reality on something, in anything. It was really real to you. Cool. And recall a time you and another had a high reality. You know, you really, really were on the same page. Yeah. Doesn't have to take long. You got one? Cool. Great. All right. So you can see, just if you can get good at looking for realities and getting that you can agree on, you can increase this triangle again, increase your success. You can play it with your staff, your customers, your husband, your wife, etc. All righty. Very good. And the last one, we'll keep this rather short. I've covered this quite a bit in earlier weeks. So now we've got the top up there, that communication. Now the top, it is the most important. And this is what it means. It's by communication, we mean an interchange of ideas. So you commonly see people talking, texting, and various other things, but are there an interchange of ideas? An interchange of ideas. Well, sometimes yes, sometimes no. You ever sat at around I remember my grandma and her friends used to sit around, and I'm not having a go at old people here, but it always stood out that they would sit there talking about how things were and this and that and the other, but they'd cut each other off and they'd talk over each other. There was a lot of noise and a lot of talking about the weather and various other things, golf and whatever, but like not necessarily a lot of ideas going across. So you might have seen that, right? So that's not communication. For it to be a true communication, it's ideas have to travel across. And I'll give you a quick demo and then I'll wrap it up. So now this is bugging for me today. Okay, there we go. All right. It seems to be bugging. I'm sorry, guys. But anyway, it's not communication unless the same idea that started here gets over here. So it doesn't matter if sound was made, if emails were sent, or texts were sent, if the same idea you were thinking of didn't arrive at, customer's mind, it's not communication. Okay, and that's the simplicity. All right, so that's, they're all sitting there having a family time, but are they communicating? Maybe not. Don't think so. All right, so last drill, and then we're going to end off for questions. Okay, so here we go. You ready? So I want you to recall a time when you were in communication with a customer, like real communication. They were really getting what you were saying and you were really getting what they were saying. Cool. All right, excellent. Good. And here's another one. Recall a time when you were in high communication with just someone. Like really high, right up there. Yeah. I can tell when you got it because, you know, smile, big smiles start coming. People start looking real happy and, and they're looking a bit better about things. All right. Cool. You got that? All right, great. All right, good. Last one. So it all adds up to understanding. I'll just share the screen. So if you want to understand anything, you just need to do what we've done today. It all adds up to understanding. If anything that you understand, even right now, if you understand it truly well, you've been communicating with it, you have reality on it, and you have affinity. And if you increase one, you increase them all. Okay, don't have much time for that. Thank you. If you want any more information on the ASE triangle, just you can contact me at those at 200 Million Coach on Facebook or contact at 200millioncoach.com. All right, thanks guys. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Oisín. That was really wonderful. And I think affinity comes when you have passion to do something, and only then you feel it. Thank you very much for that. And now we will start our questions session. Over to you, Maria.
Okay, thank you, Aqeel. We're just going to go to the chat. We've got a few participants that have joined us this evening. Lucas, would you like to unmute yourself? Lovely. Welcome, Lucas. Do you have some questions that you would like to ask the industry experts?
I do actually, yes. So what I wanted to ask is, obviously Oisín was talking a lot about communication, and I understand when you're in good communication with your customers, you can really understand what they want and then how you can deliver a good product. But what I wanted to ask is, how do you better monitor what they want and how you need to adapt? Is it by communication with them, or is it by looking at how the business is doing and the statistics and the trends and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, cool. Good question. All of the above, basically. So that's what stats tell you. Stats like sales would tell you how many people you are communicating with you with their money, for one, the form of communication. But to go back to how to understand what your customers really want is, survey. And what is survey? You're literally communicating with them to find out their reality and what they have affinity on. Like the most bizarre things happen. I can give you a really simple example in what I do. I do these, sometimes I do planning, these plans, and we talk about policy. And I found, I'd work out these policies that the clients were going to implement into their business, and they'd never write them up. So what I would start doing is I would then get their letterhead and I would put it on a document, and then I would put the policy, and I would give them their first policy, and I'd do it on the spot. Or do it like, that later that day. It would take me literally 2 to 5 minutes, and they'd go like this. Oh, that's amazing. It's awesome. And it's got like their company logo, and I just literally took what they said, and I might have grabbed the logo off their website, but I was just watching, right? Their affinity come up. So, you know what I did every time thereafter, right? Every time I was doing that step, I did that. I didn't ask them, do you want me to make one? I'd make one. And every time they go, oh, that's amazing. So you just have to be observant, right? It can be simple things like that. I could go on and on with stories of that sort of thing. I'm sure Peter could too. So, does that give you a bit of an insight? Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks for that.
I do want to say something to that question, if I can.
Yep.
Just on the point of asking the owner, about what the problems are and what needs to be done. That's usually the worst source of information. Like, you really need to do, if you want to solve the problems of a company as a consultant, you need to take a look and really see what's going on.
I get you.
Because you see, people see what they can see, and they're very good at that. So, if I went to, say a salesman type is running a company, the easiest thing to sell to him is another sales course or a marketing program, because all problems are sales problems to a salesperson. And I've gone into the homes of these people and they have shelves and shelves of books all about selling. And yet when I look at the business, it's completely disorganized. No one really knows what they're doing. And people are screaming at each other. Really, the problem is lack of organizing. But the person really doesn't think that that's particularly important. So asking people what the problem is doesn't really get you very far, except as it builds affinity. You listen to the person telling you what the problems are and you say, gee, that's a terrible problem. You poor man. That's just absolutely shocking. Just tell me more about it. And after half an hour of that, they love you. And they're in a position to say, well, that's not really the problem. It's over here. Now they'll listen.
Yeah, I guess they tend to get defensive too, I've noticed actually.
Well, yes, but of course, building affinity overcomes that.
Mm.
Yeah, that's
So sometimes you have to make them very right about what they're doing that actually can be very wrong, but it gets you to the next point.
Mm.
Okay.
Beauty. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Oisín, and thank you, Lucas. Selman, would you like to ask the business expert some questions?
No, I'm good for today. Thank you.
You're good. Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. And Sadaf, do you have any questions for the business experts?
No, I'm all good.
Oh, that's good. And Jan? Okay, well, that's fantastic.
We must have been so thorough. There's absolutely no questions. That's good.
I know.
Absolutely, totally thorough.
I think you guys nailed it tonight. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. So it's a lot about creating and creating and creating and having affinity, reality, and communication, which equals understanding. So there's simple tools and very powerful tools that we can all take away with us. So thank you both for what you've taught us this evening. Aqeel, would you like to say something?
Thanks, Maria. Thank you to Peter and Oisín. These tools looks very simple, but we never knew it. And thank you for both of the experts for giving us knowledge about it. And I think that's all for tonight, and we are going to close it. This recording will be uploaded on social media networks. And thank you, everyone. Thank you to all the participants, Lucas, Jan, Sadaf, and Salman. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks very much.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Catch ya.
Night.
Enjoy all the